Is this a concerning situation for me as of right now when it comes to what I'm seeing in regard to VeChain? Long story short, I actually don't think so. And this may sound kind of bizarre, but we have to consider Bitcoin's having a pullback, Ethereum's having a pullback, they're all decreasing. VeChain is as well. The common denominator as of right now is that projects, either good or bad, fundamentally, some people would say, are all having a decrease for the most part. So does this concern me? Not really, and I'll explain that in today's video, even though nothing I say is financial advice and even though I am not telling anyone to do anything. But if we take a look at it, VeChain as of right now is back at around a 450 million market cap, approximately speaking, which kind of feels like a throwback. Did you know that this market cap, when it comes to VeChain, this is basically back at June of 2020 levels. So again, the levels that we saw approximately 6 years ago were back at that point again, which may seem again very alarming, but it depends on the perspective in my opinion. I have to take a look at the fundamentals when it comes to VeChain. Is it focused on AI? Yes. Is it focused on supply chain management? Yes. Has the VeChain Thor blockchain had 0 network outages ever since 2018? Yes. Does VeChain have a partnership with the UFC? Yes, I see all those boxes being ticked, but the thing is this, if I see all that, is that concerning? No, because the fundamentals didn't become bad in my opinion. The only thing that changed was the price going down, but a lot of things are going down as of right now. It's not just VeChain. So given a time when the market isn't doing the best, when projects, much like random memes I've never heard of, and also a project that has strong fundamentals are also both decreasing, I'm of course going to be focusing on the ones that are actually pretty solid in my opinion. Now, does that mean that VeChain is fundamentally broken? No. Again, the only thing that changed was the price. That's it. So the fundamentals are still there, yet the price is going lower. Which again, try asking Warren Buffett if he would find, Coca-Cola being low in terms of stock price back then to be a good thing or not. It may seem like a bad thing at the time, but Warren Buffett, he's thinking a couple of steps ahead. He's thinking like, oh wow, he couldn't believe how undervalued the Coca-Cola stock was back then, right? Which is why he probably believed in it. That's the thing. So fast forward to right now, it doesn't seem like such a bad idea. Probably at the time, some people thought it was a bad idea. Now, could he have known where the bottom was? I think probably not, right? But at the same time, I will not be able to know the bottom here either. So personally, what I'm doing is I'm dollar cost averaging once a month, even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but that's what I'm doing, because by doing that, maybe I dollar cost average sometimes a little bit down here, a little bit up here, a little bit somewhere in between. It just kind of evens itself out along the way because I am looking to believe in this space for many years to come. I'm not in here just for a week or 2 weeks or, entering on a 5 or 10 minute basis. That's not me. I'm not a trader. I'm waiting. It's kind of like Warren Buffett, right? I think he said something along the lines of he's not focused on timing the market, but actually time in the market, somewhere along those lines. I believe I've heard that before. So that's kind of like me in a sense where I'm not focused on timing the market because I'll never be able to. What I'm doing is I'm focusing on time inside the market, if that makes sense, because I could draw triangles on a price chart all day long. What's that going to do? Do you think I'm suddenly going to figure out the bottom? Probably not. Some people said 2 weeks ago was the bottom. Is it? No, it wasn't. So the thing is, we really sometimes don't know where the bottom is. No matter what I draw on a price chart, the market is simply not going to care and it's not going to listen to what I have to do. So instead of trying to fight the market, I'm just trying to spend time in it. That's it. And just treat it more so of a long-term thing. It's like a marathon. It's not a sprint. That's the thing. It's like, for instance, if I'm running a marathon, suddenly there's rainfall and all this, suddenly there's strong wind. I can't control that, but what I can control is focusing on the finish line, just continuing with the journey and, accepting that, there's going to be some drawbacks along the way, right? There's going to be maybe some challenges, but I'm just going to wait it out. But that's for a marathon. It's not for this space. But that's just kind of the analogy that I have. And if we take a look at it, VeChain did very massive things, actually. Take a look at Stargate and the Hayabusa upgrade. That's really massive, actually. If we actually take a look at it in the context of VeChain, very massive. But yet still people say this is doing so bad. I would arguably say that even though this market cap as of right now that we're seeing when it comes to VeChain is back at 2020 June levels, right? June of 2020 levels, even though we're back at that point again, I think that VeChain has improved way more when compared to back then. I really do believe that. Back in 2020, we didn't see all this. You know what I mean? And in 2020, we haven't even seen the rise when it comes to VeChain yet, actually. We've seen it now, but of course there's a pullback. But again, I feel like the project became better. However, as of right now, it's actually back at around a $450 million market cap. That's the thing. So we got to think about that. When it comes to VeChain, it arguably became better, yet the price charts are low. This may seem kind of alarming, but actually, if we take a look at it within this space, a project developing amazingly fundamentally does not mean that it's going to translate to the charts, because the charts are really affected by the market sentiment. It does not work like in the case of stocks, because in the world of stocks, for instance, let's say a company, okay, maybe the market isn't doing the best, but if they launch a very revolutionary product or maybe their net income is looking so fantastic, we sometimes see it become positively impacted when it comes to the stock price. But it doesn't really work that way within this space. So we just kind of have to understand sometimes that this market doesn't operate in the same way that other markets do. That's the thing. However, we also have to consider when it comes to this space, it could go down quickly, but it could reverse quickly. Like it could go either up or down pretty quickly when it comes to this space. However, we don't really know exactly what's going to be happening at what time. However, other markets out there, a decrease of around 30%, 40%, that could take years. But also on the flip side, the recovery when it comes to that could also take many years. When it comes to this space, sometimes 20 or 30% in terms of recovery, that happens within like hours in some cases. During an altcoin season, sometimes a movement like that, like around 30 or 40% in the opposite direction, it happens pretty quickly too. So we just got to take a look at that right there. Yeah, sure, there's drawbacks, but also if the market were to recover, we also see sometimes the pace in which this space moves. So that's the trade-off right there. You know, it's not perfect, right? But that's just what I have to be willing to understand if I am in this market. And I'm purely voluntarily being in this market. Like I don't have to. It's not a requirement for me to believe in this, right? But I voluntarily want to. However, I don't mind waiting, so that way I'm not frustrated, because if my mindset is, oh, only a couple weeks, only a couple months, then I'll be really frustrated, because this space, it usually takes quite a while. But I don't mind waiting. That's the thing. And if we consider this as well, VeChain being at around a $450 million market cap, we have to consider it's still ranked 83rd in the world in terms of market cap within this space. So let's just let that sink in. It's still really massive. And if we think about it as well, back in December of 2024, the market cap was around 5 billion. So clearly we're over 10 times lower than that. But let's just say for simplicity's sake, we're 10 times lower than that. Here's the thing. If some people out there are telling me they're looking for that type of movement, like I see some people out there, they tell me about a microcap and they talk about a hypothetical 10x for whatever reason. But my thing is this, why would I look for that through a microcap? It kind of makes no sense to me, because personally, this is just my point of view. I'm not telling anyone to do anything. Many projects in the top 100 are around 10 times lower than where they once were last year or maybe even the year before. Case in point, VeChain is exactly that. Again, it's around 10 times lower than where it once was just slightly over a year ago, back in December of 2024. That's the thing. Do I need to be looking for that type of movement through a microcap if many other projects out there in the top 100 are down around 10 times lower than where they once were not too long ago? The answer is no, right? Because I don't have to look for that type of movement through a microcap. It just kind of makes no sense. It's like, for instance, I'm just going to use this analogy. Like, okay, sure, I could try to, I guess, climb a mountain, melt some ice, and let's say drink water. I could try to do that, or I could just go to my tap and get water, or maybe go to the grocery store. What is the path of least resistance? It's me just getting water from the tap, right? Or maybe making it a little bit harder just going to the grocery store. That's the path of least resistance, in my opinion. Going to the mountain, trying to melt some ice and getting water that way, sure, it's water at the end of the day, right? But that's like a very hard path for me. So again, me trying to get ice from the top of a mountain and trying to melt that ice and trying to get water, that's like me believing in a microcap for a hypothetical 10 times movement. That's just the way to take a look at it. For what? I could just go to the tap, get some water. That's like a project, let's say in the top 100, top 50, top 200. You know what I mean? That's just sometimes the way to take a look at it. Even though that's just my analogy, I'm not telling anyone to do anything. But again, if some people out there are caring about like a 700%, 600% movement, if that's all they care about, I don't know why they're looking at a microcap. That's the thing. Because, not only are those projects sometimes not very well established, but we don't really know about their proven track record. That's the thing. So why do that? Again, I just don't get it, but this is just a question that I have in my mind because a lot of other projects out there in the top 100, top 200, they're down by quite a lot. It's not like projects in the top 100 or 200 held up very amazingly. That's actually not the case. A lot of them are not holding up that good whatsoever. So in my opinion and in my perspective, I tend to believe in these more bigger projects, but that's just my mindset, even though I am not telling anyone to do anything. But do I find this concerning overall, the situation? No, because it's not only just VeChain. And if hypothetically the market were to recover, I don't know if I'd be so mad that I cared too much about the dip. That's the thing. I care a lot about the dip. And if the market, again, were to hypothetically recover, I wouldn't be upset that I cared about it when the market was not doing good, if that kind of makes sense, right? Because if I take a look at Warren Buffett, I don't think he regrets believing in Coca-Cola back then, but that's just kind of my perspective. I am not telling anyone to do anything, but I'll be sure to make more updates moving forward. So I want to say thank you so much for watching.